Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Grow Your Tutoring Business. It's still a solo episode this week. I'm waiting for Jane to get back off holiday. I mean, how dare she go away and spend time with her family and recuperate and recharge her batteries. She's sorely missed on the podcast, but I think just in general in the community, because she's having a bit of like a detox from social media and just online in general, and good for her. I'm sure she's going to have lots to share and bring all that energy back in, and I can't wait to record with her next week. Anyway, today, unexpected setbacks just in life, and we're going to take it from a business perspective, obviously, and I've got something to share on this because I had an unexpected setback or challenge, I will call it, right at the start of the year. So we're going to dig into that, and then what actually happened afterwards. How did I deal with it? How did I cope with the challenge? What happened in the immediacy? What happened a day or two later? So I want to dig into those things and share some things which I've learned over the last few years of running a business, from mentors, also from reading books and connecting with other podcasts and just having like good people in my life, really. So first of all, let's dig into the difference between like what we would consider a normal business challenge and an unexpected setback. Because look, growing a business, you are going to have like what I'm going to consider ordinary challenges when you're growing. And even if you're at the early stage of your business, expect lots of smaller problems that you're going to need to solve. I consider things like understanding how to get a parent to pay up front. That's a problem. But once you solve it, once you know how to, I don't know, talk to that parent or talk to that family and say why it's important. And most of the time we don't need to justify it. We just say, actually, you pay up front. That is the normal way of doing business. It's not even really a discussion. And then it's like, how do you get them to do it? So it's like one thing getting them to agree, and then the how. The how is always the bit where we kind of, usually business people would put that beyond like a paywall. I'm not. I'm just going to tell you now. How could be you sending out invoices every month or every 6 weeks. I do every 6 weeks. So for me, invoicing takes about half an hour every 6 weeks. So overall, I spend 3, maybe 4 hours a year invoicing. If I'm honest, it's probably not as long as that overall, really, because most of my parents pay using Go Cardless. So the reason I'm bringing this to this podcast is because, yes, it's a problem, but once you learn how to solve it, it's not a problem anymore. And then it becomes a choice. And I'll give you more context. So a parent will phone me up and say, hi, Mr. C, looking for some tuition. What are the options? And I'm like, well, yeah, option one is £175 a half term, and you pay using Go Cardless. And they say, because I really want everybody to do that because it just saves a lot of time and effort. So what we do is we do 170 times by 6. We divide that into 10 equal payments across the year. Nice and easy, right? And most parents, I'd say the majority, go, yeah, that'd be great. Just send me the link and all done, set up. Don't need to think about it anymore. We just set out when the first payment goes, and then we have a following 9 payments after the first one, all done. But a parent might go, do you know what? I don't really like the direct debit thing. I'd prefer to have a bit more flexibility over the year. And I'm going, great, not a problem. I can invoice you, but it's half termly and it needs to be paid in advance. And if they still say no, then they don't work with me. That's me solving a problem because I stop the problem before it even starts. If they say no to those 2 things, which makes life really easy for me from a business perspective, it means I can run my business. Then it's quite an easy yes or no. You say yes to the Go Cardless, great. You say yes to the invoicing every half term. If you say no to any of those or no to both, not going to work with you, because I know what that means to me, because suddenly I'm not spending half an hour every 6 weeks sending an invoice. I'm spending maybe 90 minutes to 2 hours every month checking who's paid and who hasn't. And I'm not going to spend my time doing that. You can go forward with this, like as your business grows and your time becomes like even more precious than what it is now, you might want an automated system like Tutorbird or Tutor Cruncher that will schedule the sessions. It will automatically detect whether someone's attended or not attended, or you're going to manually, plot it in there. It will automatically send invoices for you monthly anyway. So there's ways in which you can like offset or outsource this in other ways as you grow. So this is me telling you about how these small problems pop up as you grow in business. They are normal. They're not what I would call unexpected issues. They are just problems that arise as you grow. Yes, you're still going to need to find solutions for them. And the tips we're going to talk about are going to help with that. But what I really want to focus on are those big unexpected issues that come up. And I'm going to share what happened with me back in January of this year. So, to give some context around this, I changed the business to limited back in July 2023 and hired a company to do that. There was an accountancy firm, a national accountancy firm. There was like a monthly, it's almost like a monthly membership, right? So it was about, I can't remember how much, I think it was about 140 a month. And they for that set out a package. Part of that was registering the company with Companies House, making sure it was set up in the right way, making sure that they covered all of the stuff in the finances so that it was all set up properly. And I was like, couldn't wait to get rid of some of that work. And actually, I was quite excited about learning more about that side of it. I don't really, I mean, look, I always know what's coming in. I don't often keep a track of what's going out beyond like obviously keeping receipts and doing that. I don't keep spreadsheets or anything. It all stays in my business bank account, and that's it. And so I was quite excited about sort of taking it down a different path myself because I want to run the business. I don't want to be the tutor in the business or the sole tutor in the business. I actually want to be running it. And so to take that step towards that felt the right move. And I was kind of sold this package. Anyway, let's fast forward a few months. Conversations around VAT come up because I knew I was quite close to the threshold and I didn't want to leave it too long. The advice is to make sure that you're having these conversations with yourself, with obviously with yourself, with your accountant, and then with HMRC to kind of see what is the best way forward. And whether you are actually liable to VAT, because there are nuances to it. And so you have to be really clear with the rules. And I'm going to be really honest with you, the rules aren't clear. And your accountant isn't a VAT specialist. This is what I've learned over the last sort of 7 or 8 months. So you need to be really clear or get clearer with your liability, basically. Is it right for you to register early? Would you be better off registering early? Do you need to register at all? And all of these questions that you want to try and find a specialist to help you out with that. Anyway, I was told don't register yet. What we'll do is we'll hold off because we can choose the window in which we first register and we think it, and basically I was advised not to do it. And I was like, okay, look, you know more than me on this. I didn't follow up with questions. I didn't go back to HMRC and see what they thought. I just trusted that. So what this left me with was like accounts that we would do for a limited company still that would do you things like your corporation tax, basically, but also you're still liable yourself because there's a part of you that is still taking money. I was paying myself a salary, but also there was still self-employed stuff. And so I still had to do a self-assessment. So it got to the end of January and it was stressful, right, to say the least, because the self-assessment was left and left and left. And even though I was sending emails from November onwards saying, really like to get this sorted now, we've got everything, if I send it over to you, it got to the point where it was actually at the deadline. It was about 3 p.m. on the deadline day. Everything has to be submitted by 10, I think. It might be midnight, but I think it's 10. And I was like, look, I've never done this before. I've always hired an accountant to do my self-assessment. I've no idea what I'm doing. You've got all of my stuff. You've had it for months. It still hasn't been done. I've not even had a conversation with anybody. All I've done is emailed and emailed and emailed and moaned and moaned and moaned until I was like, I'm going to have to do this on my own. And I realized I'm going to have to do it on my own. And then someone got back to me. It's like, no, you don't. We'll get it done before 10 o'clock. And I was trying to teach. I had tuition sessions running up until 7 o'clock while making sure they got everything they needed. It was so chaotic, but it got done. And my self-assessment came through. It was fine. It was a little bit more than what I expected. I'd already saved some. So my self-assessment had been saved. It was a little bit more, but it was fine. I had the money there. It all got done and paid on time. So it was all good. And I was a bit like relieved, to be honest. And I went back to them the next day. I was like, look, that was chaotic. I never want another year like that. And actually, does this set me up in like the wrong way for you running my business? You know, it made me ask some questions and gave me some doubts. This is the first thing I'm going to say about unexpected challenges. And it is ask questions. Like one of the things which I didn't do up front was ask enough questions. There was almost like full-on trust there. And I'm a little bit reluctant to go down the path of not trusting anyone. That's not how I want to be. It's definitely not how I want to run the business. It's not how I want to be as a person. I want to be able to offer up that trust first However, I now going forward, I would ask more questions. And this is also not just before, because again, it's unexpected because you don't know what the challenge is going to be or what the unexpected issue is going to be. But even after the fact of something happening, you need to have some questions ready. So, what happened here, and this is where the unexpected thing happened, was about 3 weeks after the self assessment, I got a VAT bill. Completely unexpected, because the last conversation I had, and it was through email, so there was records, was saying we are not going to register Kudos Education for VAT. So I had no idea. Now, the bad thing about that was that I couldn't or didn't plan to save 20% of the income. So I didn't have it. I didn't have the amount that HMRC wanted from me. So I was like, what am I going to do? So asking questions up front and being a little bit more, I'm going to say business-like, business-minded, just making sure you are protecting the thing that you're growing, because this is what we're talking about. Ask more questions. And I was like, Rich, you've got to ask more questions here. What could I have done to have prevented this? I could have asked more questions in November. I could have been way more demanding. Look, when I was talking about self-assessments and VATs and whether we was going to register for VAT, I could have just done a lot more there. Like, could I have gone and had a conversation with HMRC and said, look, this is my situation, and my accountant's telling me this. My kind of brain is saying, actually, you're so close, I think you should register, which is probably what happened. I don't know, because my accountant didn't tell me, but it's probably what happened. They probably went back to the books and was like, well, we forecast that you're going to have, between this window and this window, you have no choice. You're going to have to register. They didn't tell me, which was a sign of the way things were going to go. Like, there was virtually zero communication, or what I'm going to consider purposeful communication. Why didn't I do that? Right. So in my brain, in that reflective moment, I'm like, well, I should have done that. Right. So I know now, like, what's the learning here? Like, I should have asked more questions. So ask more questions before, and it saves a lot of hassle later on. But I was still left with this unexpected bill, did not have the money for it. I was like, whoa, I'm not going to be able to do this. And actually, this is where, like, putting the business at risk, because if you don't have the funds to pay your bills, you can't operate. What I would say here, this isn't really a tip, but this is something which has been part of my mindset for quite a while. It's this idea of abundance. So what I've got is a problem in front of me, which is a money problem, a financial issue. And actually, is it a financial issue? More of a cash flow, because the money actually, even though it will seem like quite a lot, because it ended up being like 4.5 grand. Like, in terms of the monthly income, I could cover it, but not at that point. So I needed to just delay things by 4 weeks, and then I'd have money coming in. Yeah, I wouldn't have the full amount, but it would be more comfortable. And I know I'd be able to kind of like chunk it out maybe over a couple of months, which is not ideal. HMRC don't like that, but you can phone up and have those conversations. So here's tip number 2. Right. So tip number 1 is ask those questions up front so that you can avoid the pain later on. Like, try to get as much information as you can on these things, on everything in your business. Know that it's about you staying in the game long enough. Remember that, like, we have this thing called the finite and infinite game. The finite games are games that end. Business doesn't end. So it's infinite. So it's about staying in the game for as long as possible, or forever, because that's the whole idea. So when you're asking these questions, it's not about finding the win. It's about making sure you can stay in the game for as long as possible. So I should have done that. I didn't really, like, think about it at the time, but now it's top of my list. I'm like, am I asking the right questions? Is this about longevity? What's the main sticky points that I need to sort out early on so I don't have to worry about them later? And it seems obvious to me now, and hopefully it seems obvious to you as listeners, that, crikey, Rich, you should have asked those questions. That's like common sense. But at the time, I put my trust into somebody else that I thought was acting in my best interest, but they clearly wasn't. Tip number 2 would be to look at things from a solution focused perspective, but I want to go a bit more, a deeper level, and that is, like, to focus on the facts in front of you. Like, what are the 100% truths? Yeah, obviously I was annoyed with myself. I was scared. There's a lot of emotions running around, like, oh my God, is this going to be the end? But the fact was, there was a bill of about £4,500. That was a fact. That needed to get paid. HMRC want their money. So let's deal with the fact. Have a chat with HMRC and say, I don't have it. So what's in the element of my control here? What can I control in this situation? Well, I can phone and just see what the options are. So I'm really clear about what the next steps could be. I've also got 4.5 grand that I need to make back because I've essentially just lost 20% of my income over that little window of time. So when you look at the facts, actually, one, it doesn't feel so bad. One, you're acknowledging it, and then you're going to try and find the solution forward. So HMRC were really good. They were like, okay, we recognize that you can't pay it right now, but we want our money. So what we're going to do is this, and we create like a bit of a plan. I actually paid it all in one go. It's actually what I did. I managed to get the money, right? So I managed to pull together some stuff, and it was fine. But what it did do was for a little while, it meant cash was at a very low level, which is not ideal. So you're putting other things at risk down the line. But I knew there was a big or something big happening. And it was about 6 to 7 weeks after the payment needed to be made. So I knew I could do it if I could just hold fire for 6 to 7 weeks. But it is amazing what you can do when you know you've got to do it. So we just made adjustments and it was fine. It was fine, although I would say it was quite scary at times. We came out the other side of it and it's all been good. The systems and processes changed because of it. And this is where like the next tip is like, what are you learning from? Like, what's the lesson? What was the lesson here? Well, so I've got that thing at the beginning where I know I need to ask more questions. That's a good lesson. And that means I can hopefully avoid really big, unexpected problems in the future. But also, it's made me look at all of the systems around the finances and gone, well, I need to change this because, first of all, it would be good to be able to have a buffer in the business so that if something really big and unexpected happened, like we can continue. Remember, like it's an infinite game and I want to stay in it for as long as I can. If I can do that and a buffer would enable that to happen, and there's an element of safety. I don't think I want a massive safety net because I think there's an issue with that for me. But because I think you should have money working for you. I don't think you should have a pot of money that just sits there, like a big pot of money. But if I can create a buffer, something out of the ordinary happens, okay, great. Let's get that in there. That's solved. And then I can carry on focusing on the bits that really matter. So there was something about the systems and processes in place there for the lesson for me. And I think this is something which I want you to do. So when there is a problem and you've come out the other side, use your reflective skills to go, what was the lesson? What's going to change? So now really easy for me, like, because I have to pay VAT. I'm like, well, when I'm business to business, so if I'm like selling a course to you guys or there's workshops or there's memberships, VAT is going to be added on top because you can claim that back. I then have that pot for VAT that I can pay and my business is still secure because otherwise I lose a fifth of my income. And no business can really sustain like that. But in my tuition business, I don't really want to pass on 20% of the cost because that would make my prices probably unattainable for some. I'm not saying for everybody. I wouldn't lose everybody, but I know some would be like, well, we can't do an extra fifth on top or an extra 20% on top. So I have to look at it slightly differently. I can raise my prices. That's a system and a process I can have in my business. So that can swallow some. And then I can look at other services on top. So perhaps if I'm doing like 5 sessions, I can add a 6 somewhere. And actually, can I reduce something down so the cost of the VAT is less anyway? There's just other ways to look at it. So I'm actually looking for like 10% extra on the cost of tuition, but then also grow by 10%. And then that's the 20% covered. If I'm honest though, like it probably will grow more than that. It's always grown more than that. So, but the system and the process in place will be to make sure that 20% is siphoned off at source. So I never see it. So when the VAT bill comes in, it's done. And I don't feel like I'm like giving away everything to the government like I did originally and this time around as well. Although it's not come as a shock this time around, but and I've planned for it. So it's worked really well. Yeah. So it's about the lessons learned. And then how is it going to change in the future? So that's really, really important. And it kind of feeds into the next bit, which is like those practical solutions. So you've already heard me talk about it, but it comes from asking those questions, making sure that we ask ourselves what the lesson was, and then what are the practical solutions? So the practical solution for me was, can I take this money away at source so I don't have to worry about it? When I looked at what I was selling like to tutors, I was like, well, I could add the VAT on, because that is standard practice when you sell from business to business. The VAT is there. The way I'm actually putting it out there is slightly different to others, though I'm being upfront about the cost. So the course, for example, was £300 to enroll, but with VAT was 360. So what would usually happen on a business to business website is you'd see £300 plus VAT. So the VAT is like this hidden cost. I don't like that. I find that quite annoying. And I've been caught out a few times where I signed up to something that was quite expensive and then it ended up being a whole lot more. Like to the point where I did a mastermind a couple of years ago, it was £10,000. And I was like, right, I could barely afford it. It was a big stretch. And then when I got the bill, it was 12,000 because of VAT. So on my website, I actually put the price inclusive of VAT, but I make it clear that it is inclusive of VAT. It's INC VAT. Nice and clear for everybody to know, to make sure everybody knows that's what it's there for. It did get queried because I think I missed one of the prices out and it says £300. And I'm like, yeah, it is £300. The course does cost £300 plus VAT. So the price is right. I'm just actually giving it to you in a different way. So once you've learned the lesson, it's like, what are the practical solutions? And that's often where we need support because we might not know. Like after I got the VAT bill, that unexpected one, I was like into panic mode because I really felt like, where am I going to get this money from? Like I had no at the point, and I think I panicked and I sort of forgot all the abundance mindset stuff because this is what happens when you go to fight or flight. But what I did do is have the sense to pick up the phone and talk to somebody who's been through it, a mentor. And I was like, look, this has happened. I'm really like struggling with this from a mindset point of view. One, I don't want to give them the money because I just feel like it's a ridiculous system. And which I, yeah, no choice, right? You just have to play that game. But also I don't have it. And then once you've kind of chatted to a mentor who kind of goes, yeah, but you know, actually, is this really true? A good mentor will kind of go, let's look at the facts here, right? Let's lay it down. Like, actually, at what point would you be able to pay it? Let's not panic in the moment now, but what does 4 weeks' time look like? What does 6 weeks' time looks like? And suddenly I was like, oh, actually, look, I've got that coming in 6 weeks' time. That's going to cover it and then give me a bit of a buffer. And if I put that buffer in place, I feel okay. So it was an interesting system, an interesting time. So look, what are the practical solutions around your problem? If you can't find them, who's in your phone? Who are you hanging around with that could help you? And I feel like there's a bit of a theme at the moment where I keep coming back to the idea of you've got to look at who you're spending time with. Who have you got in your phone that's going to help you out of these times of need? I am so lucky that I've got people in my phone who I can go, do you know what? I'm really struggling today, or my energy's really low, or I've got this problem, and then I get a good answer back, or not even that, but just someone on the other end of the phone that's going to listen and have your back. Something really funny happened between me and Jane about 4 or 5 months ago because we was talking about the course and we were talking about Tutors Who Thrive, which is like the brand for everything that we do for tutors. And we're trying to plan out like the next sort of 18 months to 2 years, or give it a vision, not really plan out, just give it a bit of a vision. And she's like, what's ultimately what you want to earn? And I think I was feeling a bit flippant that day. And I was like, I need to earn £1 million, but no context behind it. I didn't say I was joking or anything. And without missing a beat, she texts back and go, okay, let's put that in. We'll work that back for you. And start working it out. And then I was like, oh, I was only joking. And then Jane's like, well, I thought you was in trouble. I thought you'd like got in with the wrong crowd and you owed some horrible people £1 million, but we are going to try and figure it all out. And I mean, look, what kind of people do you want to have around you? Like that to me is like amazing. So I say to someone, I need to make £1 million. And she's not like going, oh my God, you're not going to be able to do that. She's like, well, let's break that down for you then. And even though it was done in jest, I was like, of course I don't need to earn £1 million. The fact that she was going to stand by my side and give me the advice and just make sure that it was something that we could work through together, I felt was like really heartwarming. But look, that to me is everything. Like the community, the people you are spending time with, are they really positive? Are they on your side? That to me sort of adds a layer to all of these other tips. So let's just run through, right? Ask yourself questions up front. Make sure that you are thinking the infinite game, right? Make sure you're asking the questions that are going to keep you in it for as long as possible. The second thing was really take a look at what you can control. Like, what are the facts? Once you know what the facts are, and you're going to remove the emotion out from your decision making, it's just like, okay, yeah, some of this stuff was scary and it's going to make you anxious, it's going to make you nervous, and sometimes it's going to really test you. That's acknowledge all of that stuff and then go, right, let's put that to the side for a second. Let's look at the facts. Once you know what the facts are, it gives you an element of control, and then you can look at practical solutions to move forward, which is tip number 3. What would be the practical solutions to solving this unexpected thing? So the unexpected thing's the real hook here, but this does help with all of the issues and the problems that you're going to face as a business owner. And the very last thing that kind of like puts an umbrella over everything is, who are you hanging around with? Who can you go to when you hit a snag in the road, when you hit a barrier, when you don't know what to do next? Who can you pick up the phone to help you out? Right, thank you for this. I really hope Jane is back next week with me, because it just gives a bit of a different feel to it. And I do really enjoy doing these ones on my own. I still prefer having the company of someone to come and lean into and have a proper conversation with. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think, and I'll speak to you all soon. See you later.